we can help as many families as we can.
Yeah, my daughter was she and I have a fun relationship. She'll just like troll me and mess around with me, and so she's always been like, I don't like Bitcoin, just like just because she knows like that's my thing. And I had her watch the episode, and the whole time she was like, why can't I see his face? Like, are they going to show Satoshi's face? I was like, baby, that's kind of the point. Is like we don't know what he looked like, so they're not showing his face. Like this is he's a mysterious person or whatever. And she was so frustrated. But I think it was the first time she ever, like, for me it was helpful because I can sit there and explain, I mean, she's 6.5 years old, that it's a better form of money. So you know how you use a quarter to buy a gumball. Like, well, imagine if you had something that like they couldn't just make more of, and now that gumball is going to cost more money, or whatever. But I think you've broken it down really well. It's such a hard concept to explain, though, and so I can only imagine the torment you must have gone through trying to figure out how to explain this in a way that the average homeschool mom or dad could grasp. Was that episode, did that one take you longer than the others, or?
Oh yeah, by far the hardest episode we've ever had to write was the first Bitcoin episode we did. Yeah,
how long does it take you to make an episode? Like how long from like this is the concept we want to explain to it's ready to be presented in public?
Yeah, about 9 to 10 months is like from start to finish. So writing is only like 6 weeks. But I mean that one, yeah, I mean, I'm not even sure we did distill it down to the level that we needed. It was so, Bitcoin is so dense, but we tried to do the best we could. And honestly, we just made it for ourselves and for our kids, figuring that kids can watch this a few times and maybe get more and more each time they watch it, But yeah, for sure, the most painful episode to write.
I can only imagine. So what was it for you then? You said as you were researching to prepare for that episode, you sort of turned into a Bitcoin maxi. You quit with the anything else.
Yeah.
What was it that stood out to you is like, okay, this is the signal amongst a lot of noise?
Yeah, I mean, to me, it was, just reading the Bitcoin Standard, realizing the absolute scarcity, realizing the history of money, and just going through that thought process, and then just realizing that every other cryptocurrency is not scarce, that it's not hard to create. Like we always sum up our lessons of each episode in a little rhyme. And the one for that episode is when money's easy to create, society begins to break, or something like that. See, I'm botching it.
Yeah.
But it's true. Like that was the thing, is like that is what protects Bitcoin, is this absolute scarcity, and something that society had with beads and with gold at a certain time, but inevitably it gets easier to create and the system breaks. And now it's just something that hasn't been broken. And it's, basically hope.
Yeah. So I'm going to play a little bit of keeping up with the Joneses here. I'm curious, how well does your 6-year-old grasp Bitcoin? Is it something that like the wheels are turning? She understands it?
Yeah. So it's a boy, my son.
Okay. Your oldest is a boy.
He's gotten to the point where it's funny how, with kids, when you don't have to unlearn fiat, it's just so simple. They just understand. But he's gotten to the point where, he took me his tooth fairy money the other day and asked, Dad, can you put this in Bitcoin? Because he's afraid that the inflation monster is going to be, eating his money. And so, I mean, to a level, he understands that, like, money's a melting ice cube. I got to put it in Bitcoin fast. And this summer we were selling door to door. He was trying to save up for a toy, and the lady wanted to pay him in cash, and he's like, oh, actually, I'd prefer not. I'm like, he's worried about inflation. I'm sorry.
That is amazing. So I told my daughter yesterday, I guess my wife had them. So we've got like chores, things that they've got to do as part of the family. But then we'll give them opportunities for like additional sort of labor, and we'll compensate them for things that exist outside of the realm of normal family duties. And I guess they had done some work, and my daughter mentioned it to me last night, and I asked her, I was like, okay, do you want me to pay you in Bitcoin? She's like, how do you pay? Like, how can you pay me in Bitcoin? I was like, Well, I was like trying to think, like I don't actually have a solution for a 6-year-old kid. So I was like, well, we could like download a wallet onto the phone. She goes, Dad, I don't have a phone. I was like, okay, we'll figure it out later. So now I need to figure out how to compensate my kids in Bitcoin so they can, keep track of their earnings and everything without, having a child with an iPhone or
That's
something
right.
like
I
that.
mean, the
But
first person to do this, we're going to be the first customers. I just have a notes app that's like, here's Bennett's Bitcoin. It's a little ledger of how many sats he has. But
oh man, dude, you're giving me my own product ideas. There you go.
I mean,
Okay.
yeah, yeah. If you make it, we will blast it out to our audience because I think it's a great, yeah. What's something kid friendly and kids, uh, basically dummy proof that kids can essentially have a piggy bank of Bitcoin. That'd be great.
Yeah, yeah. Build it and they will come. Yeah, that's for sure. So how would you frame the problem with modern education? And I'm reading Connor's opinions on it to my 4-year-old right now, I think, but I think that there are still a lot of people who there are people who woke up during COVID. I agree with you. I think there are a lot of people who think that there is still like this structure that needs to be had that I no longer, in my previous life, certainly was convinced of that, but that I no longer feel. How would you maybe frame that for anyone listening who might have optionality to homeschool their kids, but isn't at the moment because they think that whatever they're doing is sufficient or, perhaps even optimal? How would you sort of lay that out?
Yeah, I don't want to be too harsh because everyone has a different, background and life circumstance, right? And so if public school is the only choice that you can make work, that's great. I would just say like Tuttle Twins can be something, a resource, outside of school if that's your jam. But I would say, as I've gone down the rabbit hole and just reflected on my own schooling, like I grew up in public school. Uh, a lot of times I mean, the system's based off of the Prussian, school system that basically made kids into factory workers or soldiers, right? So it's just how many hoops can you jump through? They grade the kids like grade of meat, right? Like A, B, C. And like it took me like personally, anecdotally, I was not interested in economics at all in school. It was only afterwards as I'm studying Tuttle Twins that I'm just fascinated. Like I've probably done over 1,000 hours of research on Bitcoin, right? Just Bitcoin podcasts and books and things. And it's just because it's so fun, right? It's like, it's so engaging to learn. And so if I'm thinking about my own experience, like kids love to learn, they just hate being bored. And what school does, at least in my experience, is it often just it pushes you through the factory. It drills that love of learning out of you and makes you have to, go after those achievements. And so I don't know. I think the purpose of education should be teaching kids how to think, not what to think. Not memorizing dates, but like learning why the founders of our country did what they did. Learning why Henry Ford did what he did, and things like that. So understanding how it applies to our day, and that's kind of our goal with the show. Is just we always set it up with some problem in the twins world they can reflect on, you know, the history, the historical example, and realize, oh man, these people, first of all, their life was much harder than mine, but they also, use these same principles to think about how they're gonna, solve their problems.
Yeah, I think if I were to frame it, like what the distinction I see in like the Tuttle Twins approach is, it's not that you all give necessarily like all the answers. It's more make you think about the way that the world works, and that's something that. And here's the thing for anyone listening who is like, I was public school kid until high school. It was a smaller school, and so I had like more one-on-one, time with teachers, for help or that sort of thing, which was useful. But at the end of the day, most of what I walked away having learned has been completely and utterly useless in my life. And I had to spend a hell of a lot of time sitting in a classroom to acquire that generally useless or forgotten information. And like what I'm finding with the work you all have done is these are concepts that can be broad. Like if you can instill these in your kids, they can be broadly applied. Like the critical thinking for them to look at a situation and say, because like the way you guys frame it a lot of times is like Emily or Ethan, for people who aren't listening, these are the twins, the two characters. One of them will say, well, isn't it good to, want to help the, poor people or whatever. And I think every kid and most adults have that same inclination, right? And it's a part of us. But then to pull on the thread further and to say, yes, but by what mechanism is that work done? Is it you being robbed by a centralized entity and them helping in whatever capacity that they deem worthy? Or is it you deciding as a free person that this is, I want to go help this individual or this group of people or whatever. And so to me, I think the biggest delta between what you're doing and what any school almost is doing is just critical thinking. Is
Yeah.
that maybe a way you would frame it as well?
Yeah, absolutely. It's digging below that, surface level and understanding how the world works. You can go your whole life without learning these things. And then, what's bad seems good and what's good seems bad. And you don't know which way is up. And so, hopefully, in instilling these values in kids early enough to be able to actually think critically about what's coming their way, they can be a little bit immune to some of these very intoxicating ideologies.